What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we finish up our talks on the Oath of Conquest Paladin, as we are going to be building one together, and I hope you guys are looking forward to this. This is a really fun build that I think you guys will really enjoy, so make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people who watch the channel are actually not subscribed, so don't be one of those people. Please help us to reach our goal of 5,000 by the end of this year. I think we can do it, but I need your help. Of course, make sure that you share the video as well, and make sure you click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. Also, please consider joining the channel. Down below, you'll see that join button, and for only $2 a month, you can become a member of this channel, which really helps me out to create this content that I create. But on top of that, you do, of course, get some great little perks. The main one being you get write-ups for all of my builds and subclass fixes. On there, there's a whole gallery of all of those for you to print off and keep, use at your table however you want to do it. And they are a nice typed up formatted document for you. So that is a really great value for you, of course. And then of course, going up from that at $5 a month, you have our silver tier. So if you are silver tier and you are watching this date of drop, you're watching this a day early. So these come out one day before the normal posting date for everyone that is silver tier. And of course you get a shout out. So there we go. Thank you so much to all of my silver tier members. I really appreciate you. It really helps me out in doing this. And finally, the gold tier. The gold tier, of course, is going to not only get the shout outs like everybody else and also get the documents, but also get priority picks in our variety builds. And there will of course be a few other perks coming down the line. I am working on those, but for now that is what we get. And so you also get access to a special part of the Discord server, which is pretty awesome. And so there are a lot of really great things that you can do with each of those levels of joining the channel. So I really appreciate all of my members, and I hope that you will consider becoming one as well. Last thing before we jump into the video, I know I promised last week that I would have a video that was not D&D related and all that kind of thing. That's coming this weekend. I've been waiting on a bunch of people to do a bunch of things, and they have been taking a lot longer than what I expected. And so I should hopefully have everything that I need to complete that video and it to hopefully go live this weekend. And so that is my plan, to have that up on Sunday, I believe. And so be looking forward to that. It is a really cool thing that I'm wanting to start doing on the channel, at least for a little while. And it's just in addition to the D&D content. We're not stopping anything about how do I want to do this. Just something else that I'm adding onto the side just to expand what we're doing here on the channel. So I hope you will check that out. Okay, now I think I'm done with the intro. Let's go ahead and do the build. So the Conquest Paladin is a really fun one to build around. Basing everything around the fear effect can be really awesome. The only thing is that we're kind of limited in a lot of ways, right? Our channel divinity is very limited in its uses, right? And so if we don't get that save off, or if they pass that save, then we're kind of out of luck, and then we lose out on our aura at level 7. So one thing that I want to shore up in this build is our ability to cause fear, and maybe not necessarily by using spell slots. I still want to be able to use those for smites and for other types of things. So how can we create fear by not so much relying on our magic and not so much relying on our channel divinity if we only get the one use, or we've already used our use, something like that? That is what we are seeking to solve today with today's really fun build. So let's go ahead and jump into my version of the Oath of Conquest Paladin. Starting off, as always, we have our race, and I'm going with something that I don't know that I've used on the channel before. If so, it's only been like once or something, I don't remember. But we're actually going with a Dragonborn this week. Dragonborn is kind of a weird pick because for the longest time they were absolute trash. For forever, actually, until Fizban's Treasury of Dragons came out not that long ago. They were one of the worst races in D&D 5e, and they were a player's handbook race. They had years to fix this race, and it just never happened until Fizban's. So I'm really glad that they were fixed. And of course, we are using one of them out of Fizzbands. And specifically, we are going to be using a gem Dragonborn. Now, which type of gem Dragonborn is not really all that important to this build. I would probably go either crystal or topaz personally, just for the resistance to that specific type of damage. But you could always grab a force version of your exhale here. To me, I don't think that we're going to be using our breath weapon all that much because it is based on our constitution modifier, and our con mod isn't going to be that great. It's not going to be trash, but it's also not going to be something that we can really focus on. And so I wouldn't rely on the breath weapon. I'm more so here for one, the telepathy, which is pretty awesome, and the fact that we can fly once we get to level 5, which is pretty fantastic. What's even better about this is that there's no restriction on this if we are wearing heavy armor. A lot of times when you're getting a flying speed, it will say, well, you know, you can have a flying speed if you're not wearing anything above medium armor or anything above light armor. There is no such caveat here. It is, if you are using this ability, you can fly for 1 minute, which is fantastic, right? We're not going to necessarily be focusing on the flight aspect, but who's going to turn that down, right? I think that that's an absolutely fantastic thing to get here, and you'll see further later why we took this race. But for all of those reasons, we're already off to a really good start. For our stats, of course, we're going to be using our modified standard array as always. If you are going to be using a regular standard array, point buy system, rolled stats, whatever it is, your stats will look different than mine, and that's totally okay. Just focus on them in the order that I present them. Our top stat is going to be in our strength, followed, of course, by charisma, then constitution. Then the last three are really up to you. I personally go wisdom, and then I go with dexterity. You can swap those if you want to, if you'd rather have a +1 to your initiative and that kind of thing. I personally like having wisdom saving throws be a little bit better here, and I think that's a little more important, especially since dexterity does not affect our armor class, since we're going to be wearing heavy armor. And then, of course, finally, intelligence, because we're not using that. Who does? For equipment, we're actually going to be pretty simple. Of course, grab the best heavy armor that you can, probably going to be chainmail for right now, and then eventually work your way up to full plate once you can afford it here in several levels. A lot of levels, but that's okay. Once you get enough gold, definitely go for that once you can. And then probably grab a shield and a battle axe. I really like having a weapon that has the versatile property. That way, if we want to put the shield away and deal a little bit of extra damage, we can. Or if we want to be a little more defensive, then we can do that as well. The shield is not necessary for this build, but it is something that I like having the option for. So that's something to consider. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. All right, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and start taking some levels. At level 1, we are going to be a paladin. And yes, I know that's shocking. I think that paladin is really the best start that we can make here because we're not going to be taking any kind of fighter levels during this build. I just don't have room for it on this build. I will say we are not going to be going 20 levels in paladin like what we did last week with the Oath of Ancients paladin, which is up in the iCard above. The thing is with this, yes, the 20th level feature for Oath of Conquest is busted strong, right? However, it is also kind of unrealistic to make it to level 20. If you are going levels 1 to 20, I would probably just go 20 levels in Paladin. I mean, it is what it is. However, I'm wanting to do something a little more realistic and a little more fun, right? And focus a little bit more on the status condition, that kind of thing, instead of necessarily just raw damage. And so I think you'll be a little more well-rounded with this, and you'll just be scarier, and it'll fit your theming a lot more, in my opinion. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing today. But so with that first level in Paladin, we get a few things. We get Divine Sense and we get Lay on Hands. So of course we can now see certain types of creatures around us, and we now have a really awesome pool of healing of 5 times our Paladin level, which we are going to be taking most of our levels in Paladin, so that is going to scale quite nicely. At level 2, we're going to divert. And so yes, we are now on the way of conquering. We are looking to take over whatever it is or wherever it is that we are headed at with this character. And along the way, we have stumbled maybe a little bit and found something or someone or whatever it is that has led us down a not so good path, and we're going to take a level of Warlock. However, we're not taking Hexblade like what everybody says that you should take for this, because yes, it is nice to be able to focus solely on charisma, especially with our channel divinity being based on that with the saving throw. However, I think it would be more worth our time to go with a different one, and that is the Undead. The Undead Warlock gives us some pretty awesome things, but mainly it's Form of Dread. Now, Form of Dread honestly is better than our Channel Divinity option, and the reason is because it is so spammable. Now, it's not necessarily an aura like what this one is, so you can't necessarily hit as many creatures at a time if they're bunched up, but you get temporary HP. The fear that you're causing can be used a lot more times than the Channel Divinity can, which is great, and you have immunity to the frightened condition yourself, which could come in handy for sure. But for me, it's the amount of uses that we get, right? The Channel Divinity is going to be something that I'm going to want to use once everybody is kind of around me. And I mean, 10 feet is not that big, right? If I'm hitting a bunch of creatures with that aura, I probably have worse problems here than just making them scared of me. And so I think that this is actually going to be a lot more applicable. And I don't know, I just think that this is going to come up a lot more so than our Channel Divinity is going to. And that allows us to save our Channel Divinity for Guided Strike, which is still a very good thing. Or Harness Divine Power, which allows us to get spell slots back, which just means more smites. So I think it's good to free that up and to use it on something different. And then that way we can use it for a better effect in a different way. We also, of course, get Pact Magic here, and Pact Magic, of course, gives us some magic here, which is pretty awesome. So, of course, we're going to pick up things like Eldritch Blast. Why would we not? And, of course, we also get access to things like Bane and False Life if we wanted to take it. I would probably take Bane, to be honest, because Bane is going to be your negative bless, your ability to affect saving throws on certain things. And so if you can get a Bane off and then follow that up with a Fear effect, following that up with, of course, your Aura of Conquest later on, that can be a pretty nasty 1-2 punch to really lock down an enemy and put it in a situation that it really doesn't want to be in. We already get Armor of Agathis here, so I probably wouldn't take that. Hex is definitely an option as a concentration spell. We, of course, will eventually be using Spiritual Weapon, and so those actually don't conflict because Spiritual Weapon is non-concentration. So that's pretty cool. So I would probably use Hex for the most part for now, and we may change that a little bit later once we get some higher level spells. At level 3, we're going to go back to Paladin, actually. There are some cool things at Warlock 2, but honestly, I think that I really need to focus on getting enough Paladin levels under my belt for right now, especially for things like extra attack. I would like to get my next concentration spell as soon as possible as well, and so I'm just going to beeline Paladin until I get all of that stuff for now. So at Paladin 2, we're going to get a fighting style. And honestly, I would probably take the blind fighting style. You could take dueling here, which would make a lot of sense. It would help you with your damage. However, blind fighting would allow you to see certain types of creatures that are trying to get the drop on you. And that way, when they're trying to get back out, you can see them. And that can end up being pretty cool. I think for this specific subclass, I think it makes a lot of sense. But if you wanted to run the other one, then that's totally fine. It makes a lot of sense to me. We also, of course, get spellcasting and, of course, our divine smites here. We get our Armor of Agathis for free and Command for free, which is fine. We also get Bless, Shield of Faith, and then I would look at the Smite spells as well. All of those are going to be really helpful for you going forward. Armor of Agathis is one that I probably wouldn't use a whole lot of, just because the amount of damage that it soaks isn't that great unless you upcast it. And once you upcast it, it's almost not worth the damage that, I don't know, unless you're running it on like an Abjuration Wizard, in which case you get a lot of use out of it. It's not that great of a spell, even though it's really fun to use. So, it is what it is. Then at Paladin 3, we of course get Divine Health and our Channel Divinity options finally. And so we now get access to the Fear Aura, which, like I said, we're probably going to be using Form of Dread more so. And we also, of course, get our Guided Strike and Harness Divine Power, which are both really, really good options as well. At Paladin 4, we get our first ASI or feat, and I want to go with something a little bit weird, and it's the reason that we took the race that we did. I want to take Dragon Fear. Dragon Fear, of course, is going to be exclusive to Dragonborns, and it gives us yet another option to cause fear. Again, I want to make sure that we can use our aura as often as possible, which means that we're going to need multiple sources of fear coming from this build. And so what other way than to take a half feat, which is great. So that goes ahead and knocks out our strength score. Plus we can also get another fear effect. So for all of those reasons, I think that this is a really, really good pick here. It's kind of an off the wall pick, but I really like it. Actually, I think it works well here. At Paladin 5, we get extra attack, which is always going to be an amazing thing. Attacking twice is always better than once. And we, of course, get second level Paladin spells. Hold Person and Spiritual Weapon come for free, which I would be using my bonus action for Spiritual Weapon after the initial casting of Hex, which is going to be great. Hold Person is also a really great option. So definitely use that from time to time. Then, of course, we get Aid, Find Steed, Lesser Restoration, and possibly Magic Weapon if you wanted to use that. Those are all pretty decent options. At Paladin 6, we get Aura of Protection, and this can be pretty decent, right? Of course, adding on to our saving throws and our allies. Definitely will save lives over the course of the campaign for people who are near you. And then at Paladin 7, we get Aura of Conquest. So, of course, now whenever someone is scared of us and within 10 feet of us, the speed becomes 0, which can be really nasty for making sure that we confirm those kills that we are looking to confirm. At Paladin 8, we of course get another ASI or feat, and our best option is just to bump Charisma. Like I said, we are looking to cause fear, and everything is tied to our Charisma modifier currently. And so we want to make sure that that is as high as possible in order to make sure that we get as many successes as possible. So I don't think there's really a better thing that we can do here. At Paladin 9, we of course get third level spells. No features, but still third level spells are good. And we get Bestow, Curse, and Fear for free, which are fine. And we also get Revivify, which is good if nobody else in the party has it. I would probably take Spirit Shroud here as my replacement for Hex. Now this is up for debate, but I personally like the secondary effects of Spirit Shroud as far as preventing healing, because if something is not able to run away from you and can't necessarily make a melee attack, if it gets 10 feet away from you or you back up or however you want to do it, then that could be interesting. They're sitting there like flailing at you and they can't hit you, but then they could sit there and heal. This would prevent that. And so I think that that's really, really interesting, but also gives a little bit of extra damage, which is just as good. Then once we reach this level, I think our character begins searching elsewhere for power. Not too intensely, but happens to find some more power within. And so we're going to take a single level of Sorcerer here. Now, Sorcerer is going to be a really cool take here. And normally this is not a great one level dip. However, I think that this does work in our favor, which is pretty cool. And so we're going to get, of course, one level of Sorcerer. And we, of course, already get our subclass as well, which is fantastic. So for this, we get Spellcasting. And for our subclass, we're going to go with Divine Soul. And Divine Soul is an amazing subclass, really fits our theming here that we are looking for of someone who is divine or worships divine, or maybe just thinks that he or she is divine, whatever you want to say. And so we get quite a bit out of this, which is great. Favored by the Gods is going to be huge, being able to just add on to failed rolls, which is really, really good. And there's no risk, because if you fail, then you don't use it up. So that's a really great feature to have. And on top of that, we get 4 cantrips and 2 first level spells. And this really just takes the kit to the next level. For our cantrips, I would probably take Booming Blade if you want to go with something like that. Of course, probably don't use that in conjunction with your fear effect, because, you know, if they can't move, then Booming Blade's not going to give you the secondary effect. You also get things like Lightning Lure, which can help bring people in. And then I would take things like Prestidigitation and Shocking Grasp. Shocking Grasp could be interesting if you get somebody in a fear effect and then just back up. They can't take reactions off of this. And so if they're 10 feet away from you at the edge of your aura, then you can just stand there and they can't hit you. And then you can just step back up and do something, which could be really cool. You could just shock and grasp them to death over and over and over, which could be kind of funny. But so that's something that you could do. And then for first level spells, we're going to take two of my favorites, Shield and Silvery Barbs. You had to know that we were going to go with some shenanigans like this, and yeah, we're doing it. So Shield is going to add on to our already amazing AC to make us even harder to hit. And Silvery Barbs is going to make that saving throw just a little bit harder to make for our opponents. So if they make that saving throw, that sucks for you, try again. And then you give advantage to one of your friends on the next roll, which is huge. So I think that's a really good pickup as well. Now we're going to head back to Paladin again, and we're going to be here for another little while before we consider diverting again. We're at Paladin 10, we're of course going to get Aura of Courage, which gives us something that we've already had access to a long time ago, but that's fine. And then we also then at Paladin 11 get improved Divine Smite, which just gives us extra damage on every hit that we make, which is always going to be a good thing that I will take. At Paladin 12, we get another ASI feat. I'm just going to keep bumping my charisma until I get that maxed out. There's not really a reason to go with anything else at this point. For me, it's now maxed out, which is fantastic. So I'm in a good spot there. Then at Paladin 13, no features, but we do get 4th level spells. I would grab Dominate Beast and Stone Skin for free here, and then Banishment and Find Greater Steed would be pretty good here. Of course, Banishment would be a really good target for the Silvery Barbs, and so that, of course, is another great spell to target for burning through Legendary Resistance, which you're going to be dealing with a lot here. So that's pretty cool. At Paladin 14, we get Cleansing Touch, which is great. And then Paladin 15, we get our Scornful Rebuke, which is just basically free damage every time that we are hit. So obviously that doesn't necessarily work all that well with our heightened AC from Shield, but it's okay. It's fine. I do think to combine this with Armor of Agathis though, because that can really add up after a while, right? So that can be really, really cool. But the thing is, Scornful Rebuke really doesn't have any kind of downside to it. You can hit a ranged creature. You can hit a creature you can't see. You can hit all these people with all this damage. And now that we've maxed out our charisma, it's dealing the most damage that it can. So for all of those reasons, I think we're doing just fine there. Now that we have reached Paladin 15, I really think that we're good on Paladin. I don't really think we need to take any more levels in it. And so if you've made it this far, I think we go back to Warlock and we stay there the rest of the way, because we're going to get some pretty key things here. Number 1, at Warlock 2, we're going to get our Eldritch Invocations. And just for the memes, I'm taking Lance of Lethargy and Eldritch Spear. This means that we get a 300-foot Eldritch Blast, and every time that we hit an enemy, it reduces their speed by 10 feet. So what this means for me is that if an enemy gets outside of our aura, then we just keep firing these at them, and it makes it harder for them to run away, and you can just keep firing, and you'll get a few extra hits in because they are slowed down when they're running, which I think is just funny, but you know, it's fine. We're not sticking to this, but it's just something that could be funny for this one level. And then at Warlock 3, level 19, we're going to get a Pact Boon. Of course, I'm going to go with Pact of the Blade and swap out one of those that I just took for improved Pact Weapon. This makes it magical if it wasn't already. Hopefully you've gotten some kind of really good weapon at this point, and so this might be redundant for you, in which case you could just leave your invocations alone. But that's what I'm going with, at least for now. And then finally, level 20, Warlock 4, I'm going to go with Resilient Constitution. This finally shores up those Constitution saving throws. It bumps up our modifier up to a +2 now, finally, which is great. It's been a long time coming. And that just makes it better for us to try to maintain concentration on any of the given spells that we might be casting. So what do you think of today's build? Let me know down below your thoughts on this build. I think this is a lot of fun, actually, and the light multiclassing I think adds a lot of really cool flavor to it and makes it functionally a lot better as well. For our honorable mentions, I've got a couple for each category here. Starting off, of course, is our races, and I would consider taking something like the Leonin or the Fallen Aasimar. I think the Fallen Aasimar is a little bit more reliable, while the Leonin is interesting because it's a bonus action. And so you are limited in your uses, that's the only issue here. And that's why I chose to go with the Warlock Form of Dread direction and Dragon Fear direction. I just feel like it's better to have more uses of it than necessarily one that might be more reliable for just a one-time use. So that's why I went with what I went with. But those are both really good. Of course, Leonin gives you access to the fear, and then you still have your action to do whatever you want. So there's definitely some uniqueness to that one as well. For feats, I think we're looking at the Slasher feat, of course. The Slasher feat's always going to be good here, being able to reduce the speed of our enemies, which is going to be really, really nice. Again, we're trying to keep people nearby, try not to let them get too far away, and make sure that they stay afraid. And this can definitely help with that. And of course, Warcaster is another great one here, giving us advantage on those saving throws to maintain concentration, among another few things. So I think that's really good. I think that's a reliable option to pick here. And finally, for other multi-classing options, of course, the Fighter is always going to be a standout here. I would probably either go with the Battlemaster or the Cavalier. The Cavalier is going to give us that soft taunt that we talked about a long time ago. I'll put that up in the icon above, where if an enemy goes to try to attack someone else, it has disadvantage. And so we're getting a fear effect on it, plus it then can't attack anybody else without rolling at disadvantage. So for all of those things, I think we end up with a pretty nasty overall condition there. And so that's something I would definitely consider. And of course, the Hexblade Warlock. The Hexblade Warlock, of course, would allow us to focus solely on our charisma, which makes a huge difference. Plus, we actually get a portion of our 20th level feature in our first level feature, which definitely could be really, really helpful going forward as well. But that's just what I was thinking for honorable mentions. With all that out of the way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Like I said, later on this weekend, I'm hoping to be able to put out that video that I've been talking about. And so I hope you guys are looking forward to that. Until I see you again next week with Oath of the Crown, I hope you guys have a great week. Stay safe out there. Stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.